Well, welcome in, friends, to another episode of the Story World podcast. It's been a couple weeks. We had some time off. I wish I could say we were on a vacation in Hawaii, but we weren't. We were sick and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
my boy Al is with me. What's up, my boy Al?
I'm doing well. I noticed that you welcomed all our friends and excluded family because you know all too well that family doesn't bother listening to us. And so
Well,
that's a very
actually,
apt
at
intro.
this point, it's probably mostly family that listens to us, right? So,
Well,
you know.
at least you have
Anyway,
some support on your end.
yeah, for sure. So, so what? I guess before we dive into the topic, by the way, today's topic, we're going to be talking about something a little different than what we normally would, but I think it's going to be cool. And look out, world, because we have no notes. We are not using notes on this episode, so
It literally says Steve notes, Alex's notes, and there's
and it's empty.
blinking.
Yeah. Maybe we should just skip the topics altogether and go straight to story of the week, because we could probably talk for an hour about that. But I won't spoil that though. So stay tuned for your story of the week. But we're going to be talking about the power of conversion and deconversion stories. And we know like a lot of the people who listen to us do happen to be like religious of some sort, because it is kind of part of our part of, I guess, the ethos or whatever of our show. Like it's part of who we are, and so we attract those sort of listeners. But if you're at all interested in like the way people think and philosophy of religion and like converting to religions or deconverting from religion or whatever, if you have any interest in that, I think you're going to find, maybe something a little bit helpful out of this episode. So pretty cool topic. I did want to tell everyone, Alex, about Substack. If you think
absolutely. Go
that's
for
cool.
it. Kick it off first with that.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Me and Alex, like, we love this podcast and we're going to keep doing it. Right. We love this podcast. We love even videos, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, both of us are writers. Like podcaster is not part of my identity. Writer is. I write for an hour and a half every day. Alex probably writes for somewhere near that, or maybe more. I don't know, most days, or at least tries to. And so we're both writers, and it was just kind of curious that we didn't really have an outlet for writing about this stuff, about Story World stuff. It's just the podcast. And so I'm really liking the idea lately of the paid/free newsletter model, just because it's such a great medium to get ideas out there. And technologically, it's like really simple, frankly, to publish a newsletter post there, and then it gets emailed out to the whole email list, etc. So you can join us over at storyworld.substack.com. Storyworld.substack.com. You can go there, enter your email address. It doesn't even ask for your name or anything. Just enter your email address and you can subscribe. Right now, everything there is free. And we're doing 2 posts per month. And they're going to be like longer form, sort of like deeper individual explorations into our each individual subject matter. Obviously, a lot of my stuff is going to be about business and marketing. A lot of Alex's stuff is going to be about fiction and whatever. And it's going to be worldview stuff as well. I think we sort of have this unique approach that we find in the story world as being sort of this mixture of, the true story of reality, like we've talked about, which of course me and Alex believe is tied to faith, to Christianity, to the existence of God and things like that. And then you've also got like the business side, you've got the fiction side, and it kind of just all blends together. And so this is going to be a place to explore those topics and the connections pretty deeply, and also for us to have a little fun. And frankly, the idea would be eventually that we'll have a level of that is restricted access that is going to be paid. And that's frankly to help support what we're doing here. And we both believe that it's fair to be paid when you do good work and have intellectual property that's helpful to people. So that's going to be part of it too, at least coming down the road. So anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, just that I think much like this podcast, it's going to probably grow into different areas that we just don't even expect yet. We kind of have our basic format that we want to do. But just as a heads up that there's pretty much going to be like no topic that's off the table to discuss. It's basically really, if Steve has an idea that he wants to discuss, he'll bring it up. Obviously, it will be story related in some way or another, but it's more or less a way for us to kind of get out our thoughts and explore what we're thinking about. And we'll probably even have times where one of us will write a reply to another one's newsletter that they wrote, and explore into deeper subjects, and maybe even one of us will breach something, and then we'll bring it on to this podcast and have like a long form discussion about it. So we're going to kind of see where this grows and kind of see where it takes us.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm excited about that. Me and Alex both feel like we are better thinkers when we're writing. Like, writing helps us think. And so, the podcast is fun, and serious at times, but also just a lot of fun.
Yep.
And I think that the newsletter will be a great additional component to that. And 2 posts a month, nothing overwhelming, but I think you'll find them very, very useful. So
absolutely great.
Beautiful. So so let's go ahead and dive into the subject matter a bit. So the power of conversion and deconversion stories. So it's social media is just such a crazy thing. I don't think in the early 2000s, when this stuff was being created, I just honestly don't think people knew what they were doing. What potential they were unlocking. And I think, I would have to say that maybe like a way to think about this is maybe this stuff has been happening all along. It's like, how people talk about the world has always been a rough place to live. Bad stuff always happens, etc. But like, you weren't able to find out in an instant about whatever bad thing happened thousands, hundreds of thousands of miles or whatever, like thousands of miles away from you. Whereas now it's instantaneous. It is just a constant feed of bad news and whatever, and everything going on. And lately, I would say it's really picked up in the last 3 to 4 years. There has been just a surge of basically deconversions from from Christianity. I mean, I'm sure in other faiths too, but mine and Alex's context is mostly Christianity. And there have been some pretty high profile people who have walked away from the faith. And now you can even find, like on TikTok and stuff like that, like you can just be scrolling, minding your little Christian business, scrolling through your TikTok feed, and come across a random video of a person sharing essentially their testimony of walking away from Christianity. Now, of course, you can also find the opposite, right? You can find people who are defending their belief in Christianity and stuff on these platforms as well. But you guys know as well as I do, the negative stuff tends to reach more people than the positive stuff. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about that, about how powerful these stories are. When people share about how they were brought up believing a certain thing, and then it's like, then they stop believing that, and they become so public about it. I mentioned a few high profile ones, like 3 that I'll just rattle off. There was Rhett and Link from Good Mythical Morning on YouTube. Very, very popular. Like even my wife knew who they were. A lot of people know who they are. And they grew up in like a Christian conservative environment. And ultimately they just became convinced that, in my opinion, they're committing some very, very basic errors in thought, but they basically, the 2 big things were, well, science seems to have overruled God. And, and secondly, they had friends who were, like homosexuals, and they didn't think that, like, they thought it was weird that God would be like mad at them, or that God would punish them, or whatever. So that you had Rhett and Link. Another popular one was, I forget the guy's name, but he was from Hillsong Church.
I forgot about him. Yep.
Hillsong Church. Deconversion story. I forget what his name. I forget what his name was, unfortunately. Yeah, I forget his name, but Yeah, he was one of the big songwriters at Hillsong, very popular, well-known church, and
Another
he
one,
left.
a little bit lesser known, but still kind of known is John Steingard from Hawk
Steingard.
Nelson. Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
He was the
Popular
next one.
Christian band.
That's exactly right. He was the next one I was going to say, and he's actually so. I have some friends who are good friends with him
Hmm.
as a result of these conversations.
Yep.
And he is actually back to considering theism. He hasn't specifically said
Yeah.
Christianity, but he's like back to contemplating theism because he can't get away from the fact that it's basically mind before matter kind of thing. And but still, all of these cases essentially like give the people that they influence permission. It's like, it's okay, right? It's okay to walk away. Like, look, I did, the water's fine. I haven't been struck by lightning yet. That sort of, oh, there was another one. The guy who wrote that book, you know what I'm talking about, Joshua.
Yeah. Yep.
He wrote the book about Christian dating.
Yeah, I said goodbye to dating or something like that.
That's I Kissed Dating Goodbye.
I
That's
Kissed
what it
Dating
was.
Goodbye.
I Kissed
Yes.
Dating Goodbye. I
Yes.
forget his last name.
I forget too. I forgot about
But
that.
anyway, but so there's 5, right? If you count Rhett and Link as 2, right? There's like 5 pretty high profile people in the last 3 to 4 years. And that does something to culture when they're that high profile. That it really does. It affects things. And so I thought we might just talk about how powerful those stories are. And on, frankly, on the opposite side too, me and Alex both grew up in church. And, you hear testimonies of people who found the Lord saved them out of these crazy circumstances, and they have a story to tell. And that story oftentimes inspires other people to become Christians. So anyway, there's an opening salvo for you.
It's maybe we should have stuck to notes, because now I got a bunch of thoughts going on in my head that are just ready to burst.
Well, we can chase one rabbit and then another.
Yeah,
and then another.
No, that sounds good. So I think just the first thing that came to mind, one of the things that can really, someone's story, specifically talking about someone's story of saying why they are no longer in the faith or unbelieving or doubting or whatever it is a lot of times in like either a video that they share or words, is they will say something along the lines of like, what I came to realize, or but the truth of the matter is, or something along those lines. And so I think it kind of depends, of course, on kind of your level, and because we're all at different levels of strength in our faith, and we grow in that, of how you receive that. I remember, I can't think of specific names, but I remember like as a kid hearing some stuff about this, and I always thought like, wow, like if it was that obvious to them why Christianity was not good and awful, like then it obviously must be. Like that's a very basic line to look at it, but that's the influence on someone's story. So if I were to come to Steve and say, hey, like, I think maybe the stock market's going to crash, I'm thinking about doing this, maybe you should do the same, and get Steve questioning about it. But then if I came to Steve, I said, hey, listen, like I have insider information, stock market's going to crash this day, I know what's going to happen, here's what it is. Steve's going to say, oh wow, like, okay, obviously that's true if you're so confident about it. And just that, again, that's kind of like a very basic level looking at it. But when you talk to someone who, especially someone who's been in the faith for so long, and so they know all the ins and outs of just being in that type of environment and atmosphere, to get them for them to walk away from that obviously must be a strong enough pull for it to be true, right? And that's kind of the power that can have over honestly anybody. But like if you're a Christian or a new Christian, or maybe not so strong in your faith, or even if you are, and maybe you just time and time again you turn around the corner, you hear someone saying like, yeah, I obviously don't believe in this anymore because of this and this, I'm a lot, especially now, like when they say that their mind is free, they're a lot better now, they feel this and that. It can really if it doesn't shake you, it can really get you just kind of discouraged in your mind and wondering like, how does that happen? So that just from a surface level, just by someone deconverting out of the faith and them telling their story, can really have a profound impact on a variety of people.
Yeah. Um, it's really so. I, People believe what they want to believe a lot of times, right? And so there's a phenomenon in psychology called confirmation bias, and a lot of times we're fooling ourselves if we think we're on a quest for the real truth. Um, Not all the time, of course, but a lot of the time, right? So a lot of the time, what we'll do, and by the way, like being so, what you do when you're not being philosophically careful will oftentimes tell on you, right? So I have times, obviously, where I am more reflective and philosophically careful than other times. And so maybe you can identify with this. Maybe even you can, Alex. Like, have you ever had a thought about something, right? And then you're like, oh, this is the way that I heard it was. So then you go Googling and then you see contradicting information. And then you're like, my first thought in a lot of cases is, oh, I must not have searched for that right or something. Like I go back
Let me
and
search for it this way.
and I like change the search. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
for real. I changed the search because like I could have swore somebody said, whatever. And then I'll look for it and it's like, oh yeah, got it. Found it. There we go. All good. Close the browser. I found what I wanted.
Right.
And I do this. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like this happens to me. But I also like when I stop to think about it, which happens a lot, I'm like, I just did that. Like I just did the confirmation bias thing where I found what I was looking for. And so I think that's part of the interesting thing about this is that, if somebody wants to go on the search for people who have left the faith and their reasons for doing so, that's a Google search away.
Mhm.
If what they want is to find all the reasons why all these scholars don't accept the historicity of Jesus's resurrection, for example, they can find that information. It's all there. Now, the question is whether or not that information is truthful, whether or not that information is sound. And one of my favorite Bible verses that speaks to this is Proverbs 18:17. I love this verse because it's very important. It says this, the first to state his case seems right until another comes and cross-examines him. That's in the Bible, the freaking Bible, the Bible. Okay. The first to state his case seems right until another comes and cross-examines him. And what it taught me is the importance of varying perspectives. And in fact, not even just like, oh, it's cool that whatever, like that I can go that it's cool that people have varying perspectives. It's more than that. It's like it's actually necessary and essential, in my opinion, that you engage with contradicting opinions often, because this is how the real thought work happens, and this is how you get to the bottom of truth. Is you engage different viewpoints and not just stay in your own echo chamber. And so one of my like favorite things to do when I first really got into the defense of Christianity was to engage in debates, not just people teaching from the Christian side and not just people teaching from the atheist side, but I wanted to see the best atheist arguments up against the best Christian arguments. And by the way, you can find that like literally thousands of pieces of content online of those debates going back and forth. And what's kind of interesting is every now and then, like when I'm getting ready to listen to one, especially if whoever like posted it is like really good at marketing, right? And they put something in the title that makes you think, uh-oh, like is this going to be it, right? Like lurking around the corner of this debate, is this going to be the one that plants that little seed of doubt that says that Christianity is not true or whatever? And I can honestly say I've had those feelings like a bunch, like plenty of times. And I'm always amazed by the end of the debate how well it went for the Christian and how awful it went for the atheist. Now, I'm just being honest. Like maybe you've had the opposite experience. I don't know. But in every single one of those debates that I've encountered, like very few of those debates did the atheist have a good argument for atheism. And even the best arguments against Christianity, frankly, were not very good. I mean, I think they have answers. So, and I think the problem of evil is about as hard as it gets. And ironically, on the other hand, I think the problem of evil is one of the best arguments for Christianity. So anyway, it's just interesting. Like, engaging with various opinions is one way to keep from that confirmation bias sort of infecting you.
Yeah, I will say I agree with that. As a little challenge, don't get too sucked into absorbing yourself in how do I say this? In honestly just material that you can absorb yourself too much in the other side's material, if that makes sense. So if
Yep.
you spend all your time for years straight not reading the Bible, not listening to your pastor, not maybe in a discipleship group, if all you're doing is reading books on atheism or against Christianity, yeah, your knowledge is going to grow, but you eventually, yes, that's a lot of flooding into your mind on one thing. So I agree
Yep.
with Steve as far
Yep.
as
And I totally agree with that, by the way.
the best thing to do is to listen to like long form debates or podcasts, like what Steve said. Like you could sit down all day and listen to them and never run out of material. So they're out there.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, there's a guy, a colleague who his name is Eric. He's got a YouTube channel called Testify, and he just recently posted a video that was pretty controversial about this. About like, hey, like, stop checking out all these atheist YouTubers or whatever. And like, the reason for that was not just because, oh, you don't want to engage the other side. That's not the point at all. It's that Christianity at its core is a relationship. That's what it is. It's a relationship with God. It's a relationship with Jesus. And so imagine, to bring it to relatable terms, imagine if your wife, you didn't hardly ever talk to her, and instead you spent all of your spare time with a girl from work or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, and what that girl from work did was constantly feed you with information about how your wife wasn't good for you. And by the way, maybe some of what said girl from work says is like true as far as it goes. Like maybe it is true that whatever, your wife should make you more sandwiches than she does. I'm just being silly, but like that your wife should make you more sandwiches than she does, or like something like that. But like that even if that's true, it doesn't mean that the relationship couldn't be worked on and worked out and like grow over time. And so because Christianity is a relationship, guess what? If you don't relate with that person, with the person of God, with the person of Jesus, then you're going to grow. That's going to happen. You're going to fall away. You're going to be so far engaged in this other stuff. So I think definitely approaching it with balance is so important. And if anything, I think biasing towards affirming materials, because we know the reality of doubt. Like, doubt is going to come up in the life of any Christian, of any religious person, frankly. Like, doubt is going to be there. The question is, can the doubt be overcome with good arguments? And you say, well, Steve, you keep your Christianity, I'm going to keep my whatever, my Mormonism. I'm going to keep my Islam or whatever. And I'm going to say the same thing. Oh, I'm just going to spend more time reading the book of Islam than arguments against the book of Islam. And then I'll be cool in my worldview and you be cool in your worldview. And that's it. Well, of course it has to go beyond that, right? Because you do have to actually have good arguments for something being true and for other things being false. So like, a lot of people have found that arguments for Islam don't hold up and arguments for Christianity do. And it has led them in that direction, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's definitely true. Don't spend all your time engaging in other materials, but do spend a fair amount of time understanding what other people believe so that you are reasonable and rational in the things you do.
If you're into sports or know anything about sports, it'd be like spending all your time watching the other team's footage and understanding how they play ball, but never practicing with your own team.
That's right.
It's not going to be beneficial when you're actually out there on the court. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One question that came to mind, do you, at least for me, it probably shouldn't be this way. So maybe it's just a fault of my own, but it seems to me that hearing stories of people walking away from the faith has a more profound effect, just like mentally and just kind of, like getting around it, than when I hear stories of people turning to the faith. And maybe that's just an admission of maybe I need to kind of get something right in my own mind. But I don't know, is that a thought or feeling that you have shared in the past, or why that you think that might be for some people?
Yeah. So there's a in sort of psychological personal development sort of brain thought, right? There is a like different people are motivated by different things. And so some people are motivated towards pleasure and other people are motivated away from pain. And so I think that I would say in this case, if you have somebody who is let's say you have a Christian, or at least they think they're a Christian. That's the tricky thing. When you actually start looking at the Bible, it's like now you have to deal with questions of, well, what did Jesus mean when he said a lot of people said that they thought they were saved, but they actually aren't because he never knew them, et cetera, et cetera. And once saved, always saved. There's a lot of rabbit holes we could go down. But let's say you have a person, and let me just to chase that rabbit just a little bit. I have a colleague who is a Christian with a psychology degree, and there is a potentially very meaningful, and by the way, this needs to be explored more, but there's a potentially very meaningful difference between conversion and like whatever you might consider an event of salvation, and we can explore that later. But that might be actually sort of two different things. But let's say you have a Christian who is like on the fence. Like they think they're a Christian, they've grown up in church their whole lives or whatever. They remember saying the prayer, like the whole nine. But they have like some negative thoughts toward it. They kind of think that they're being taught evolution in the science class, and that looks like it could be true. I mean, everybody else believes it. Like only the weird Christians, seem to not believe it or whatever, and well, it does seem weird that like God would place people in the middle of the country where like they would never hear about God, living in some jungle or something. And like, but he's going to send those people to hell, and they start having these sort of thoughts. Well, in my mind, if you have a person who is more motivated away from pain, the pain that they're experiencing is reconciling those thoughts together. So if you have somebody who comes along and says, hey, you're not alone, right? Like we feel this way too. And we've stepped into the other side here, and it's more pleasurable over here because you can believe that God's not going to send people to hell. You can believe that evolution is true, yada, yada, because there is no God. Then I think those people are going to be maybe more apt to think that is more powerful because it's sort of easing their psychological pain, if you will, in that sense. But then if you have people who are more motivated by pleasure, right, those people may be a little bit more motivated by the testimonies of conversion to the faith, if that makes sense. Like I think it just has a lot to do with like your internal bias, and which is, again, it's hard to to deal with your own biases, frankly. Like it's hard to admit your biases. It's hard to like uncover what they are in a lot of cases. So yeah, it's tough.
I think too, this is something that I'll probably have to explore more. Maybe I'll write a letter on it on our Substack. But I jotted the note here just because it came to mind. But you kind of have the hero archetype too, where you expect the hero to, if they don't always win or succeed, that they will at least die trying. And so, especially when you see someone like a leader in the community of faith or someone who is well known, who seems to be, very strong and, sure and everything, then you see them fall, something like a red button goes off on our head and it says, like, this isn't right. And so, I think that, dealing with that type of archetype and how we see the world, which it's funny, it's like a confirmation of that good should win. And so it's kind of like we kind of know that. But yeah, it I think that kind of deals with the psyche too a little bit, of hearing someone's story and seeing, if not your hero personally, someone that has been like either a hero to many or well known or well liked by many, kind of take that step back and turn away from the faith. I think that just kind of subconsciously registers in our system and affects us that way.
I think you're 100% right. And to go off of that a little bit too, is so with Christianity, like what people often get wrong is that it's not a checklist religion. It's not a do's and don'ts religion, do's and don'ts sort of religion. A lot of people think that it is. They grow up in a church context or whatever that has that mindset or whatever. And so the reality of the situation is, if you have somebody who comes to the faith later in life, even though Christianity is not fundamentally about your moral categories and the way you act in the world, etc., the Bible is quite clear that a person who has been radically, who has been saved, has literally been brought from death to life. They are literally, from the inside out, a new person. And a lot of times people who are converted later in life remember that moment. They remember that moment of surrender. And these are oftentimes people who have tried what you might call turning over a new leaf plenty of times before. And what they will testify to is an obvious difference between who they were and who they are based on that change. Where this gets tricky is for people who have grown up in the church. And by the way, I are one of them, right? I mean, my testimony is of being saved at 4 years old. I truly believe I was. And that I have a sense that, like, to put it one way, I feel like I always chose the good. Like I had the Holy Spirit with me. Like I felt that. But I never had some radical transformation. In fact, the only experience I have of being a sinner is of being a sinner while at the same time a Christian.
Yeah.
Right. Seriously.
Yeah.
And so what happens is you have people who have grown up in the community, in their church community, in their religious family or whatever, and it's all they've ever known. And whether or not they've had a moment of salvation, I don't know. Obviously that's for each specific circumstance, but it's like Christianity is like default mode for them. And so much like the kid who is sheltered and then goes to college and finds out there's a whole new world out there and goes and gets plastered every night and all of this, like eventually you grow up and you start to realize that there are people out there who don't believe what you do. Mm-hmm. And that's just like, whether or not there's a famous deconversion story or whatever to point to, that's going to happen. Like you are going to interact, you're going to get a job or you're going to go to college or whatever, and you're going to meet someone who didn't grow up in the Christian community. And it's going to be like, how do you even live? But they do. And I think what happens is, and maybe this is just part of the process, I'll be honest, maybe this is part of the sort of like the way the Bible puts it, the wheat and, from the tares and all of that sort of thing. But like, there's this sort of pruning process that goes on where once you really believe that other people are out there, or you come to realize that other people are out there who are not living in a Christian way, and yet they seem to be pretty decent people. They've never been to jail. They don't even go out and maybe even get drunk or whatever. They do good at their job. And it's like, if you grow up with the notion that you've always been saved or whatever, and you needed God to be moral, suddenly you find out that somebody who has nothing to do with God is moral, and your categories will break. Mm-hmm. And then that gets amplified in this world of social media and Google, where you can go immediately find literally thousands of other people, some of whom are very, very high profile, who have been through sort of the same thing. So I guess I'll just wrap up this part by saying that there is, I guess, I want to use the word danger. I want to use the word danger, but I don't. But at the same time, I don't want to use that word. The danger in growing up Christian is that you might falsely think that you actually are one and not be one, and then you get led away from the faith. Now, again, it's going to depend on your theology as to if you believe you could have been saved at one point and then not saved. And I'm not going to speak to that necessarily right now, but like I think it's far less likely. So let me just to be specific. There's a guy named Monty who I used to go to church with, and I use him as an example often because his mama prayed for him for 40 years. He was like literally drug dealer, drunk, drug addict. Like he was that guy in town. Everybody knew him. He was the guy. There was no hope for this guy, that kind of thing. Like he would be the last person you would ever expect to come to the Lord. And in his 50s, he came to the Lord. Not only came to the Lord, was called to preach. Like he's a preacher now, preaches out at revivals and different things. And faithful member of his church, has been for, probably getting up close to 10 years now. And the likelihood that he finds some scientific argument or something that leads him away from the faith is so minuscule. It's not even funny, right? Because he knows who he was. And after he found the Lord and surrendered to the Lord, he knows who he is now. And so that first person experience of the Lord on a daily basis is it's such in philosophy, they would call it a defeater. It's so powerful that it can defeat any other defeaters of arguments or whatever that somebody else might come up and say, well, have you heard about this argument? Well, it's yeah, but forget your argument. I've experienced the Lord personally. And the Bible does teach that we are able to have that sort of experience of the Lord. So, the likelihood of him uncovering some argument that leads him away from the faith is very small. And yet the likelihood of somebody growing up in the church who has never heard good reasons for the faith, growing up in this digital first world, exposed to all these people or whatever, going to school and learning about evolution and this, that, and the other, the likelihood of that person leaving the faith because of an argument they hear or something is much higher. And so, yeah, then you have the difficult question of what does it mean to leave the faith? And are you actually leaving, or are you just is it temporary, or was it not real to begin with, or was it? And it gets really dicey really quick. So
I think an important lesson here, I think we've talked about this too before off camera, Steve, maybe on camera too, that I think Christian parents really need to step up the game, especially if you were raised in I was raised in a good home, in a good church, but it was definitely on the stricter side, and kids are going to have weird thoughts anyway. But I remember growing up as a kid and not really related to Christianity, but whenever I found out a family member voted Democrat, I thought they were a bad person. I associated something that was bad that in and of itself is not bad. And that can really damage a kid, because if you have a kid who thinks, oh, all Democrats are bad and all Republicans are good, what's going to happen when they see a Republican that goes to jail for something, and then your aunt or uncle who votes Democrat is the nicest person on the face of the planet?
Exactly.
And so I think we don't think about it, but we kind of subtly train our kids wrong and incorrect thinking. And I hope, and I think it's going in a direction where our generation, Steve, is doing, and hopefully going to be doing a better job at that than our generation. I think it is a generational thing. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but
mostly.
I know there's still a lot of churches that are still like that, and there's a lot of people that kind of follow that kind of route of thinking. But if have your kids growing up in church, I mean, and that's incredible, but that's going to be the only thing that they know, when there's a whole bunch of realities out there that you would rather be the person to introduce it to them than someone out there introduce it to them. So just take a lead in your kids can take quite a bit depending on their maturity and certain age level, but you're going to have to introduce them to that stuff at some point.
Right. The big thing that from an intellectual standpoint that I want for my kids, I mean, here's the thing, a few things are true at the same time. Number one, I can't save my kids. It's literally not in my power. I mean, according to my theology, the way that I believe the Bible reads, like only God can do that. And so I must pray. At the same time, I also want to share with them what I think the truth is and be very logical about that to the extent possible. And ultimately, I don't want to teach them what to think. I want to teach them how to think.
Yeah.
And that's
going to be much more worthwhile.
Oh yeah, that's my goal. And so I want them to be able to spot the fallacy in an argument or the merits of an argument without just oh well it's Democrat or Republican, or it's they drink or they don't drink, or whatever, like that sort of silly thing. It's like that's not really a good way to evaluate people at all. It's much more a matter of and like, even so, it's crazy, like Jackson, my middle son, is obsessed with dinosaurs. And we went to a science museum just the other day, last Friday, and like it's cool because I'm now starting to get to have conversations with them that are about, like, because they're noticing the difference between, oh well, like, wait, the Bible doesn't teach, or at least again the way that I believe, the Bible doesn't teach that dinosaurs were killed by an asteroid or whatever 65 million years ago. Like we teach that they were killed in a global flood, and like there's lots of evidence to back that up, even from secular sources, that like flooding is what ended up killing out most of the dinosaurs and not some asteroid thing. And yet when you go to these science places or whatever, like literally when you walk in the door and something hits you with millions of years ago, it's the first thing. And so they're noticing the differences there now. And so I'm really trying to teach them not just, oh well, we believe this because Bible says so. Like, okay, but like it's deeper than that. And so I'm trying to get them to think about, you got to understand, boys, that like some people believe in God and some people don't. And like when you think about the world, it's two different ways of thinking about the world entirely. And so it's like, does it, and even a kid understands that it doesn't make sense for a universe to pop out of nothing, but that's literally what they teach, and it's like, kids don't need to be like, they get it, right? Like they get it. Like they don't really need that much coaxing. They just need to be presented with the options, and they can think logically about it themselves for 2 seconds and be like, oh, well, yeah, of course. Like, like Bill Craig said, how come only universes pop out of, into existence out of nothing? Like, why not rhinoceroses or like microwaves or something else? Why don't those pop into existence out of nothing? And it's obviously a very, sort of pithy way of making the point, but the point still stands, right? And so, yeah, teaching them how to think, not what to think. And that's as it relates to the power in general of conversion and deconversion. Look I don't think you should be any more compelled by a conversion story than a deconversion story. Personally, and I know that some people will be, swayed more by either one, but I think it should be a matter of evaluating everything on its own terms and coming to the conclusion that you think is the most warranted. And I guess I'll just end by saying that at the end of the day, the Bible teaches that it's not a purely or even mostly rational problem. It starts with a heart. It's a heart issue. And a lot of times what you want to believe ends up being the reality for you. And you will find it's the same. It goes back to sales. And this is where I say it all connects. In sales, you get emotionally invested in something and then you justify it logically. Nobody ever made a logical argument to buy a Ferrari. They saw the Ferrari. They said, that sucker is red, fast, and its doors flip up like a Lamborghini. I have to have that. And then they justify it logically, but they've already bought it emotionally. And the same thing I think is going to be true of worldviews or anything like that. So you have to be really careful to overcome biases and think about things. But a lot of times it's going to come down to your heart.
And in the end, for someone who is a Christian, I'll use the term because Pastor used it as for sin, but you can replace it with anything having to do with anyone else. But the only the only sin or person you should be concerned with is your own. Maybe not only, but 90% of it. You know, people are going to do what they're going to do. The only thing you have control over is the decisions that you make. Um, and so that goes for anything in life. So whenever you hear stories like this, or if something bad happens in the church that you're going through, or maybe something with your family, your church family, or someone who you've looked up to in the faith, no matter what other people go through, as long as you keep your relationship strong with God and you focus on what you need to do in life, you're going to be a lot more mentally healthy, a lot happier. You just need to focus on what you need to do, because literally what it comes down to is that's all that matters.
Yep. That's exactly right. That's good, man.
I think that wraps it up.
Absolutely. Very good.
Story of the week.
I have talked so much, so please, you talk and let's talk about it.
Well, I just got excited about that, and I was saying about the excitement that Nick Cage has in his movies, and I feel like we need to have another Nick Cage movie night. I don't know why that.
And I'm so freaking excited.
I'm so excited. Anyway, good old Nick Cage. All right, so story of the week. Elon Musk officially buys Twitter. And what a ride it was. So I remember way back when he made the offer off the cuff to buy it, and they're like, well, we'll take you seriously. And then it went through all the shenanigans of, oh, well, no way, I can't buy it because of this. And they said, well, now we're going to sue you, or however it came about. Now Elon finally owns Twitter. It only costs what, like a measly 55 billion or 45 billion or something, like pocket change.
I think it was 45.
Yeah.
Who's counting at this point?
At that point, who's counting? So Elon's already done a lot of stuff. Apparently he's so I think he got rid of all 9 like executives or director level people, or 5, whatever.
Well, he temporarily he did fire like the main, like the CEO and the head of legal and like the executive team, but he also temporarily dissolved the board.
Yes, that's right.
Which he has to do. I mean, again, like their head of whatever trust and safety is a good source to sort of follow. And he made the point that, like, look, this is all going by the book. Like, you got a transfer of power. You know, you had a publicly owned company that is now transferred to private ownership. You know, lots of stuff going on here. And
whether love him or hate him, that's just a smart business move. Like, if you go into some place, obviously Twitter's such a big company, you're gonna have people that are gonna love him and people that hate him there. Probably the majority might even probably hate him, just knowing the company. But the people that you have running things from the top down, it's not going to do well going in and trying to convince people to your side. It's a smart business move to bring people that you already know are trustworthy to you and follow your line of thinking. So smart move right off the back there from him.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'll be honest with you, like, I really try to have patience with people. I do, but I just don't get it. Like, so I saw one tweet earlier, and this is from a financial, I don't know all the details, but I looked into their profile. It's from a financial education company. Okay. This is what they are. They educate on finances. And the tweet was basically trying to show an inconsistency in Musk. And it was like, Elon Musk, hey, I didn't buy Twitter for financial reasons. Also, Elon Musk, we're going to charge $8 for Twitter Blue. And I just wanted to like reach through my computer and like wring a neck. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, this is a financial education company. How stupid can you be? It doesn't matter what reason you buy a company for, or you own a company, or you start a company, or you run a company. The company has to be financially profitable, or there is no company.
You and I have talked before. It'd be so fun to set up like our fantasy type theme restaurant and story theme stuff. And we would do it. I think it probably will one day. I think it will. But Steve and I are going to do that for fun. But guess what? If it doesn't make money, it's going to drain our bank accounts. And we're going to be
the doors will close.
Yeah.
Like, it boggles the mind. And this is not, again, I mean, this is an account with like hundreds of thousands of followers and a check mark and the whole 9 yards. And a lot of people, the same thing. You know, you've got Stephen King. I'm sure you saw his take where it was like $20, F you, Elon. I'm out of here like Enron. And Elon just, I mean, he applied, he replied with, look, we have to make money somehow. I could literally hear him saying it through the tweet, right? Like, we have to make money somehow. And then again, somebody else who had screenshotted that was commenting on it. Like, imagine Elon Musk, imagine the richest man in the world, haggling with Stephen King over $16 or whatever. And it's like, or whatever it is, $12 or just whatever it
is. Yeah.
And it's like, this is, the dude is just trying to figure out, like, I'll be honest, I don't understand. Even if I didn't like him at all, by the way, I am biased because I love him. I love Elon Musk. I think he's a freaking genius. I mean, he is the man as far as I'm concerned. That's just it. But even I would like to think, here I am checking my biases, right? I would like to think that even if I didn't give a crap about him, that I would still understand what he was doing from a business perspective as being the right thing to do. Yeah, you know what? This is an important guy, Stephen King, in the scope of people. He is an important person. A big deal in the scope of humanity. And yeah, sure. I mean, he was coming on and saying, okay, we wouldn't pay 20 for it. Fine. The market was speaking. Would you pay 8? Right. Why not? Why not have that conversation? And by the way, why not? And this is the thing. This is what's so cool. What people are missing. People are just missing this. This is not a conversation that's happening. Like, it's so cool. It's the coolest time to be alive. This is not these conversations, the settling of Twitter Blue being $8 or whatever. It's not happening in some boardroom amongst a bunch of suits who are making decisions for no other reason than their bottom line and or appeasing governments, which is what it used to be. It is now a conversation happening in public. In this case, it happened very publicly between the richest man alive and one of the most successful fiction authors alive, which is a big deal considering the readership of fiction versus nonfiction, right? I mean, Stephen King, a pretty big deal, legendary, right? So it happened in public. How are people missing this? Everybody can see it. There's it's like, it's literally fundamentally unshady. Like, I don't know what else to say. It's the discussion about what the thing is going to cost is so transparent that it's happening on the platform for everybody to see and comment on. It's what the world needs. And I don't see how anybody is missing out on this. Like, I just don't get it.
Yeah. You would think that the vast majority of people will be like, okay, this is a pretty good thing. Like,
right. Look, here's another one. Because I told you this is a dangerous topic because I could just go. I got the screenshot and I'm just gonna read it. Gonna read it if I can.
Go for it.
If I can find it. Oh, where is it? I posted it on Facebook. So I'm gonna.
While you're looking for it, I have a thought.
Yeah, go ahead.
I almost believe people when they say we're in a simulation, because I feel like that only in a simulation would this guy Elon be able to own Twitter, SpaceX, and Tesla. It just do everything that he wants to do. I almost believe people who say that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I showed you that video. The man designed rockets that land on their own in the middle of the ocean on a barge with computers, and they're totally reusable. They could literally be taken right back to the launch pad and go again after refueling.
That's insane.
What in the world? He can't deal with a social media platform. What are you talking about? What are you? And again, I'm gonna still say, like, whatever. I think at this point, people we're gaining our correct, like, I would say, crowd here. Like, the people who hate us have already tuned out. Like, if they're not, whatever. But like, the same thing happened with Donald Trump. Here's what it was. The man, whether Elon or Donald or whoever, the man was a genius until they bucked against the narrative, right? Everybody loved Donald Trump. Every celebrity, every whatever, he had more respect. He had plenty of respect. Same with Elon Musk.
Well, same with
You know
Elon
what?
5 years ago. Wow,
5 years.
Tesla, he's making safe self-driving cars. He wants to explore
Yep.
space. Great
Yep.
guy. Yep.
Yep. But allow people the freedom to speak up, not in any illegal way, just in a way that might contradict what some people think, what some narratives say, and you end up with Twitter hashtags trending like boycott Tesla. Really? boycott the safest cars on the road, objectively speaking. Boycott basically the largest car company. They're blowing all the others out of the water, and don't spend a dime on advertising. Boycott the company whose long-term vision is to create batteries so that not just create batteries, but to make up about 10% of the world's total battery supply, so that the world can run on battery power instead of gasoline and fossil fuels.
It doesn't make any sense.
But he can't, right? But the big man says that people can post whatever they want to on Twitter within legal, within laws and all that, and we want to boycott them now. See, it's just so stupid. So here's this. So I screenshotted this. I am going to show you, and for the benefit of people who end up watching the video on YouTube, and then also for you, just because you might want to see it. I don't know. Here it is. Okay. So I screenshotted this. These two tweets were in my Twitter timeline, one right on top of the other. Elon saying Twitter will be forming a content. This is like the day he bought it, right? That evening. Twitter will be forming a content moderation council with widely diverse viewpoints. No major content decisions or account reinstatements will happen before that council convenes. Okay. Nobody should be mad at that. Why would anybody be upset with that viewpoint? Oh, yep. We're going to form a fair moderation council. Different viewpoints. We're not even turning on the orange man or anybody else until these things happen. Whatever, we're going to put this council together. The very next tweet from Marina Sirtis, who is from Star Trek The Next Generation. She played Deanna Troi, and then liked by #1, Jonathan Frakes, who my kid is freaking named after. Like, break my heart, right? She says, I'm sorry, but I could not be a part of anything owned by Elon Musk and his cabal of deplorables. I'll stay on for a couple of days so that we can say goodbye. But after that, I'm gone. What is this? Freaking kindergarten. You can't be my friend anymore. Like, what is happening? Anyway, what is going on? That makes no, and so that is the problem when you've got the source who says a perfectly reasonable statement that doesn't favor either side or whatever, but then you've got such and such influencer who comes on and says blah blah blah, cabal of deplorables, I'm out, blah 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 blah. Like,
and what's funny is it's like as if her leaving Twitter is gonna cause a mass exodus of
right.
Who is it? Who even is this person?
Like, who gives a crap? Like, so Elon has 113 million, I think, right now, followers. Let's see how many Marina Sirtis has. Is she still on here? She might have left already. I don't know. Marina Sirtis. I don't see her. Yeah.
Took all her 10 fans with her.
Yeah, she might have left already, but like basically she had no. Yeah. I mean, she, like, again, relatively speaking, like it's like a total nothing burger, right? And so it's just that sort of mindset, man. Like, that's how close-minded people are. And I'm just like, look, if you're listening to this, if you're still listening to this, God bless you. But look, if you're listening to this, like, please don't be that way. Like, you disagree with people or whatever, but like, don't just totally twist people. Like, you don't know what people think and how they are. Like, until people say it, like that old saying, like, you don't know how stupid, people are until they open their mouths or whatever. And it's like, anyway, it's unbelievable to me how unfairly people are handling this whole situation. And you think, well, why do you care? Well, because I think Elon's right in his supposition that Twitter is the de facto town square. That's it. I mean, that's it. It is how people online, especially digital natives, share their opinions for the most part. And if that is not protected, then humans have no way. I mean, literally today, there was a huge report about, did you see this? Did you see this report? Oh my
I
word.
don't know.
Today, there was a huge report, documentation and everything from a left-leaning news resource that showed basically collusion between the United States government and various platforms to censor certain kinds of speech that they didn't like a legit report, documentation, the whole nine. Like, that's what we're going.
Surprise me.
That's what we're going from. I mean, I'll be honest. I think it's like, I mean, I think in this world, everything's a God thing. I really think this might be a God thing. Like, it's literally like, it was almost extremely, like, even Twitter or Facebook, like all these places were almost even more dangerous than they already are for humanity. And
yeah, this was a big win. I mean, honestly, it's a big win for everyone. Like, really, it should be a big win for everyone, but not everyone's recognized it. And if you look at like political sphere, like it's the most like libertarian thing that could have happened, and everyone should be kind of happy about that.
That's right. Yeah.
As a Christian, for anyone, Twitter people are going to say stuff on Twitter that you don't like, and that's okay, because everyone's getting the freedom to say whatever they want, and that should just be a good thing.
Yep. And it's yeah, that's right. I don't understand the controversy. And what's interesting is, like, a lot of people who are basically politically liberal and socially liberal or whatever, like your Joe Rogans of the world, they see this and they get it, right? And I appreciate that. Like, I appreciate people who see what's going on for what it is. People who wouldn't necessarily vote conservative. Like, I'm hearing of people. Joe Rogan, one of the guests he had, was talking about this, how a member of their family, literally the most blue, like, liberal person you can possibly imagine, is like, yeah, like, I would definitely vote for DeSantis. Like, and she was like, talking to Joe, she was like, how is it that bad? Like, how did they lose? Like, how did they lose her? Like, how did that happen? And this is how, when you suppress a human's ability to human, it has dire consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it comes down to. When you're not able to behave in an environment that you're meant to behave in, that's what's going to happen.
Nailed it. All right, that's enough for this one.
Yes.
I think we've talked everybody's ears
Steve
off.
and I said that we were going to go 20 minutes tonight, and
we got to stop. We got to stop saying that. So we just got to let it happen. Like Howard Stern, just let it happen, baby.
Just let it happen. What a great show he runs.
Yeah, well, something like that. Yeah.
It's something like that.
Let's just say I wasn't allowed to watch it growing up.
Yes. So, all right. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Appreciate your time and support and everything.
Yep. Many, many blessings. And thanks for sticking around. Join us on Substack. Join us on YouTube. We're getting in more places. And are we going to do so? Let's just real quick. We are going to have maybe another episode or two, I think.
Probably
and then we're going to
probably two more.
And then we're going to be done for the year. We're going to kind of take a little break and come back with next year. We'll call it season 2 and get started all over again. Right. We've done this for almost a whole year. How cool.
Almost a whole year. And
so
I
excited.
think we're going to come back bigger and better. We're just getting our feet started, and so I think we're going to come back and have some really cool ideas, and I'm wicked excited to kind of see what happens in season 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm loving it. All right, man.
All right, see you later.